Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's edition of WCM Supplier Showcase, sponsored by Everest Ice and Water Systems, which is a vending ice and supply company, one of the largest for campgrounds, and makes these conversations with one of my friends like Mark possible. Mark, of course, is founder and CEO of Campground Views. He's an industry expert and somebody that's been to more RV parks than I can count, and probably he can count more than anybody that I know. Mark, thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Great to see you.
Start and just talk to us, give us a sense of what your product is about with these campground virtual tours, and really how the process is done in a nutshell. Because when a campground owner looks at this thing, it's super cool what goes into making it all happen.
Yeah, so a lot of folks will know me from like Campground Views, and that originally started back in 2012. My wife and I were full-time RVers at the time. I was actually running a digital marketing agency, and so it was really a hobby, and it was a hobby built out of need. And the need is the same problem that exists today, which it's actually very difficult for campers to find out information about campgrounds. And sometimes that's challenging for park owners to recognize, but it is. Even if you have the most amazing park, it's difficult for campers to understand that you are an amazing park. And so our entire concept was visual based experience. Let's show people what they're getting and they can make a decision around that. And so we ended up developing these campground virtual tours. And a little bit of insight into that, we've tested services like Google Street View. So Google Street View, you can go through and utilize a camera and capture Google Street View images and submit it to Google and create a virtual tour of your park utilizing that. The problem with that experience, though, is it's photo based. So you actually are jumping picture, picture, picture. It works well to get a kind of an initial view of a property, but it doesn't work well to invite you in and make you feel as part of it. And so our technology had to be built. We actually created the software and we utilize video rather than photos for the virtual tours. And that's a really big distinction in the technology. So it's video-based virtual tours. Somebody hits play, they're driving through your campground, and then they can use their mouse or their finger on a mobile phone to look around. And as a result, it's very much like they would do if they drove to your park and drove through the campground.
I
What
was
makes
just
it
going to mention that, which is perfect for that user experience point.
Exactly. Yeah. And then what makes it even more powerful is as they pass a campsite, there's a little marker there. They can click on that. They'll know they're looking at site 10. We give them information about that site, and then there's a direct link to book. So it actually takes them in to the park's booking engine to secure and book that campsite. So from a user experience, it's designed for campers first. And as a result, it's incredibly powerful for the campground owners.
And as you mentioned, one of the things that I love about the technology is the ability to go in and look further. And one of those things that we actually just released here at Woodall's earlier this week is a new map feature that you've come out with, and I'll share it on the screen for the Idaho Falls Luxury RV Park. Can you just talk a little bit about what distinction or difference that has made with
Yeah.
this technology, and how you're able to, as you said, click on each campsite and get a much better view of what that holistic picture actually looks like at the park?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Idaho Falls Luxury RV Resort is in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's a brand new RV resort that was literally just opened and just developed. And being a new RV resort, they're intimately aware of that gap in information, right? So people don't know we exist. How do we let them know we exist? And so a visual experience is really useful. But on their homepage, which is where we're at right now in your example, on their homepage, they had a traditional style map of their park. And so what we did is we integrated our virtual tours, and we do this already, but we actually made it live for them. Is you can click on any one of those site numbers there, and it will open up the virtual tour and immediately jump to that moment in the tour. So whatever site you clicked on, it's going to load the virtual tour, and then boom, it's going to jump to that site. So site 29. And this shows the user experience. So we've got details about the site, and when you click that visit button, it's going to drop you right into their reservation engine to see that site. Now from here, if you're not interested in that site, if you want to see more, there's actually an overhead map there in the top right. If you click those four arrows, and
Mhm.
that you can use your mouse to zoom in on it, and you can click on any site there, any of those blue icons, and it'll jump you to that moment in the virtual tour. So you can actually jump around the virtual tour now, seeing the different sites. Or if you close that, just by clicking the blue bar there where the site 15 is, and you hit play, you'll start traveling through that campground in this virtual tour experience. And so now using your mouse, you can look around the entire sphere. This is actually the secret to our entire experience that we're creating. We're marketers first. We're not technology people. We're marketers. We're utilizing a technology that we know works, because we know that when a camper sees this, they can say, like, if we pause right here and look to our left, let's do that as an example. Imagine somebody has just bought an RV and it's 35 feet long and they're really nervous about backing in. Now they can see your site, they can see the width of it, they can see the depth of it, and they can look around and see how wide the road is, and they can see what the neighbors look like. All of the details they're getting just from this visual experience, they don't need to call and ask any questions of you anymore. They know they can back in. There's a patio, there's a picnic table, there's a little tree. My slides will pop out. There's where the hookups are in the back. They don't need to call you, and because we give a direct path to book, they can just go book the site. So this technology itself is absolutely amazing. And in addition to that map integration that we were just showing, we just launched analytics. So we have Google Analytics built into the software now. And what that allows us to do is actually measure the interactions. And I was sharing with you off screen, Alex, once that came live, we had about 6 hours of data, and I looked at it, and there was over 10,000 interactions across our technology just in that 6 hours for people clicking book now buttons and so forth within the user experience. So incredibly valuable. Like, I have to be careful because I'm I come off almost like a salesperson when I'm talking about this, but at this point, I don't even have to sell it. If you're a park owner and you're looking to get short-term guests into your park, this is a must-have, period. Like, if you have this technology, you will never regret doing this.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest questions that maybe you get asked, or as people in this sort of environment are thinking about, like, okay, what sort of investments am I making in my park, whether that's on site or in things like this with your technology, to actually present my park in the best way possible? I always tell people as well, look, if you're going to spend a whole bunch of money on park infrastructure to upgrade certain things at your park, why not spend a little bit more to actually show people the work that you've done and get them to appreciate it and see it when they're going through this booking process? So is that how you're typically approaching these conversations too, is getting people to think about this whole experience of getting the virtual tour as an investment in your business and really getting the results that you're really looking for?
Yeah, in fact, it's more of an investment in your customers. So, like, some parks and some of the franchises, they actually grade their parks based upon the customer experience. So the customer experience. Mm-hmm. Imagine a scenario, and this happens all the time. A person sees a pretty picture of your park, or they read a nice review, and they show up at your park, and it's not what they expected. What do you think their customer service experience is going to be like? They're going to rate you lower because it wasn't what they expected. By having these virtual tours, people now know exactly what they're going to expect. And to give you an idea on scale, we just released our 1,700 campground virtual tours. So we have these tours all across the country. And so now campers not only know they exist, number one, but they actually are now demanding. The number one complaint we get from consumers at Campground Views, and they're actually hostile. They're angry about this. How come you don't have X, Y, and Z RV park in your directory? And I'll laugh. I'll be like, contact them, let them know, because we're trying to reach them and they won't respond, right? Or whatever. So it's funny because campers now expect this because it's so valuable to them. And so when you're looking at it as a park operator and as a business operator, right, you have a limited budget. You have only so many things you can do. Usually where the concern lies is people will be like, hey, I'm going to be adding sites in the next 6 months, or I'm upgrading this, or I'm building that. And so what we've done is we've built in a system. To give you an idea, a capture of a property like that capture takes our team exactly 25 minutes on site to capture it. So on site, we're in and out in less than an hour.
And I would say that's a pretty average sized RV park as well.
Exactly.
A lot of your customers or typical park operators would fall into that bucket of that sort of experience to go out and capture.
We just need to be in and out and capture that property. And then our production process is incredibly fast. That virtual tour right there was turned around in 48 hours and back in their hands. That's how fast we're able to produce these. So what that means is that when we work with a park, our response now is pretty simple. You have two options once you fix your park and you upgrade it or whatever. Call us and tell us, as long as you're a client of ours, if we have a team in the area, we'll have them swing in and recapture your park, no fee, no charge to you, as long as it's on our schedule. On the flip side, if you're like, hey, I need you here the week of June 19th, Well, in that case, we're going to charge you a nominal fee because we have to get somebody there on those dates. But the fee is going to be lower than what you initially pay, and it's going to make sure that you have a really useful tour. Again, I can't overstate it enough, but people who have these virtual tours, the park owners that have these virtual tours, they are not coming back to me and complaining. They're coming back to me and thanking me, and they are happily working with us because once you have the virtual tours, the response from the consumer, the camper, is so overwhelmingly positive that you basically look good. You're like, yeah, it was me. It was all me. It was my idea. That's why I did it. Hey, take credit for it because you deserve it. But yeah, it's the biggest challenge for a lot of park owners is that you're doers. Park owners are doers. They're out there building, they're out there doing all that stuff, and it's hands-on. So when you take a technology like this, it's a little bit hands-off. We're doing the work. It's kind of a little bit, and that's usually the separation that makes it challenging for folks to say yes, because they're like, well, I'm not doing it, so it's a little hard to have you do it. Well, the reality is all we're doing is sharing what you've done. So you did the work. We're just showing it and making it easy for people to understand the value of what you created.
And to sort of wrap this up, Mark, as you mentioned, 1,700 tours, a lot of which are with national brands like KOA or Jellystones or big parks that people in the industry as a whole would recognize. Where can park owners go to maybe take a look at some of these themselves, see the broad catalog that you have available, and how can they reach out and contact you to set up a visit? I know we've sort of just gotten out of Labor Day. We're at the perfect time to get prepared for next season. Get on the books, get this, as you said, something that can be turned around very quickly. Even as you get into the fall shoulder, I look at this and say, if you can get on the schedule and turn it around quickly, it's something that year-round parks can really take advantage of as well to fill their park. So I know that was a lot there, but
yeah.
Where can people go to learn more about the tours, take a look at them, and contact you to set this up?
Yeah, so the first part of that is that we have over 20 teams all over the country. We literally have videographers accessible to all of the lower 48 states, and we even have somebody in Alaska. So we have the country covered. We haven't even had people in Canada this last year, so we actually captured our first Canadian parks. But if you want more information, go to campgroundviews.com/OMG, like, oh my God, OMG. So campgroundviews.com/OMG. There's a 2-minute video there that walks you through the technology, and there's a demo on that page. The next place you can go when you're at Campground Views is you'll see a link and it says Campground Virtual Tours. Click on that and you'll see that there's a whole bunch of featured parks there. Those are all parks like yours that are using these virtual tours right now. And if you really want to see it in experience and kind of remove us from the process, go to Idaho Falls Luxury RV Park.com and see it working right there on their homepage and try it out for yourself. I encourage people with this type of technology not to test it on a desktop computer. Test it on your mobile phone. Try it out there and see. Now, Apple, the only thing with Apple is it won't let it go full screen, so don't click the full screen button. But you can play the video and you can use it everything on Apple. Android, it works beautifully on that device. But use it on a mobile phone. We pride ourselves in this technology being widely accessible and utilized by a whole bunch of folks. We even have an app, campgroundviews.com. Last month, we had 125,000 unique visitors on our website. We're driving a lot of traffic to these, and we are now the brand where people go to find campgrounds and RV parks because nobody has these virtual tours. So really, this is just a smart marketing move on your part, straight up. And so, good point. It is the end of the season. Labor Day's over. It's time to think about next year. I highly recommend getting on the calendar. Whether you film now or you just get on the schedule for spring when you're ready, either way, you want this for your park, period. And the reason you want it is because the campers demand it of you.
And for everybody listening, park owners, we'll have all those links that Mark mentioned down below, the Idaho Falls Park and all the Campground Views resources for you to check them out. Mark, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for this week's episode of our Supplier Showcase, and I'll see you back here next week for another show.